Hi friends, this is Parvati. Welcome to a new lecture on Indian polity. Part 1 of the Constitution deals with the constitutional framework. In that, Chapter 3 is Salient Features of the Constitution. We have discussed Chapter 1 and 2 in the previous two classes. Salient Features of the Constitution. Lengthiest written constitution, drawn from various sources, blend of rigidity and flexible, federal system with unitary bias, parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy, integrated and independent judiciary, single citizenship, independent bodies, emergency provisions, three-tier government, etc. Next, we will discuss each of the point in detail. Lengthiest written constitution. There are two types of constitution in the world, written or unwritten. Written like in the case of USA and unwritten in the case of Britain. And out of all the written constitution in the world, India has the lengthiest one. Uh, Previously, due to the at the time of the enactment of the constitution, we had a preamble, 395 articles and 8 schedules. But currently, it consists of a preamble about 478 articles and 12 schedules. So many factors which influences the elephantine size of a constitution. It includes geographical factors, historical factors, single constitution for both the central and states, dominance of legal luminaries in the Constituent Assembly, etc. Next one is drawn from various sources. The Constitution of India has borrowed most of its provisions from several other countries as well as from the Government of India Act of 1935. The structural part of our constitution came from the Government of India Act of 1935. And we took so many other provisions from various other countries, like for example, we took fundamental rights from American Constitution, DPSP or the Directive Principles of State Policy from Irish Constitution, and the fundamental duties from Soviet Union, etc. Next point is blend of rigidity and flexible. It means a rigid constitution or the rigid constitution means that the one requires a special procedure for its amendment, as for example, American Constitution. And flexible means, on the other hand, is one that amended in the same manner as the ordinary laws are made, as for example, British Constitution. We cannot say like Indian constitution is rigid or flexible. It is neither rigid nor flexible, but it is a synthesis of both. We know that according to Article 368, it provides the right to amend the constitution, but two types of amendments are there. Some provisions which can be amended by a special majority of the parliament, that is two-third majority of the members of each house present and voting, and some other provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament and with the ratification of half of the total states. And that is at the same time, some provisions of the constitution can be amended by a simple majority of the parliament in the manner of ordinary legislative process. Notably, these amendments do not come under Article 368. Next point is federal system with unitary bias. It simply means that the Constitution of India establishes a federal system of government and it contains federal features as well as unitary features. Federal features includes two government, division of powers, written constitution, supremacy of constitution, rigidity of constitution, independent judiciary and bicameralism. However, it contains unitary features also, and that means includes a strong center, single constitution, single citizenship, flexibility of constitution, integrated judiciary, appointment of state governor by the center, all India services, emergency provisions, and so on. And hence, Indian constitution has been variously described as federal in the form, but unitary in spirit. Like it is called, and that is why it is called as quasi-federal. Next feature is parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. The doctrine of sovereignty is associated with the British Parliament, while the principle of judicial supremacy with that of the American Supreme Court. The framers of the Indian Constitution have preferred a proper synthesis between British principle of parliamentary sovereignty and the American principle of judicial supremacy. Next feature is integrated and independent judiciary. Indian Constitution establishes a judicial system that is integrated as well as independent. The Supreme Court stands at the top of the integrated judicial system in the country. Below that, high courts, and then high courts is a state level, and under the high court, there is a hierarchy of subordinate courts, that is, district courts and other lower courts. And the single system of courts enforces both the central laws as well as state laws. But I think in the case of USA, it is central laws can be enforced only in the central court, and the federal laws or the state laws are enforced by the state judiciary. The Supreme Court is a federal court and the highest court of appeal, the guarantor of fundamental rights of citizens and the guardian of the Constitution. Next point is fundamental rights. I didn't written in the slide, sorry for that, but that is one of the important point. That the part 3 of the Indian Constitution guarantees six fundamental rights to all citizens: a right to equality, a right to freedom, a right against exploitation, a right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and a right to constitutional remedies. I will explain all these fundamental rights in the upcoming classes. That is why I am not going to explain this in detail. And other features like directive principles of state policy is also present, and fundamental duties were also there. And before that, I will explain you the independent bodies. Independent bodies means like what to say, the CAG. CAG means Controller and Auditor General, and what to say that thing, UPSC, Election Commission of India. All these are independent bodies. There will not be any influencer or interfere from the parliament or from the judicial system. These are some independent bodies which are present in Indian what to say Indian constitution, or it is clear in the constitution that CAG, UPSC, and Election Commission of India should be independent. There will not be any interference from the parliament or from the judicial system. Next one is emergency provisions. We know that according to Article 352, there will be national emergency, and according to Article 356, President's rule, and according to Article 360, there is what to called financial emergencies. The Indian Constitution contains elaborate emergency provisions to enable the President to meet an extraordinary situation effectively. The rationality behind the incorporation of these provisions is to safeguard the sovereignty, unity, integrity, and security of the country, the democratic political system, and the Constitution. Next feature is three-tier government. Originally, the Indian Constitution, like any other federal constitution, provided for a dual polity and contained provisions with regard to the reorganization and powers of the center and the states. Later, by 73rd Amendment and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts 1992 have added a three-tier of government, that is uh, local, center, state, and a local government, which is not found in any other constitution in the world. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the panchayats or rural local governments by adding a new Part 9 and the new Schedule 11 to the Constitution. Similarly, 74th Amendment Act of 1992 gave constitutional recognition to the municipalities, that is the urban local governments, by adding a new Part 9A and a new Schedule 12 to the Constitution. There were several other features of the Constitution also present, like fundamental rights, fundamental duties, secular state, universal adult franchise, single citizenship, etc. Single citizenship I will explain in detail. Like, though the Indian Constitution is a federal and envisages a dual polity, center and states, it provides for only a single citizenship, that is, the Indian citizenship. In countries like USA, on the other hand, each person is not only a citizen of USA, but also a citizen of the particular state to which he belongs. Thus, he owes allegiance to both and enjoys dual state of rights, one conferred by the national government and another by the state government. That is all for today's class. Thank you for listening. If you have any doubt, please write it on the comment section, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like my videos. Thank you so much for listening.